Hello. This video is a video all about the mindset of personal growth. What is a mindset of personal growth? So first of all, in order to understand the mindset, you have to understand two things. What is a mind and what is a set? A mind is something that understands information. A set is like a movie set. It is all within a certain paradigm. So when talking about the ability to have personal growth, people are looking for what will be the mindset of personal growth. And that's actually a very clever way of describing it, because certain people are not in the developmental stage. When we're a young child, we have tremendous amounts of growth. They say 99% of what you'll ever learn, think about the statistic, 99% of what you'll ever learn, you learn by the age of 5. Everything else, all the brilliant stuff you learn, is 1%. You learn how to walk, you learn how to talk. God forbid people get into some kind of traumatic accident, they have to relearn how to eat sometimes. The brain stores tremendous amounts of data. And even learning languages, you don't even learn it, it's just you assimilate information. It's unbelievable. But personal growth is the most important thing that exists in the world. One of the greatest, if not the greatest Jewish masters that ever lived, his name was Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. And he said that the reason our soul comes down into this world is because we are here to grow. In fact, he was a reincarnation of Reb Saadia Gaon, who was also one of the greatest Jewish masters, and he said the same thing. In Hebrew, it's called Tikkun Hamidot, to improve your character traits. In simple words, there are two human beings in every single human being. There are many ways of describing this. I'll use the best way, which is the way that comes from the Bible of Jewish mysticism, the Tanya. Inside us, we have two distinct souls. We have God, as God would behave. We have a compassionate, a part of us that's willing to sacrifice for another, a part of us that stands up for justice. We all have that part. And then, unfortunately, we have the animal in us. The animal is made up of 4 character traits. It has earth, air, fire, water. Earth is a tendency to laziness and melancholy, or sadness or depression. Fire is a tendency to supremacy and the anger when I don't get my way, particularly when I feel that I am so great and I should get my way. Water is a tendency to pleasure. We all like pleasure. And certainly certain people have greater, higher addictive personalities. And last but not least, air. We like fun. We like just to waste time and watch a movie or be brain dead for a while. So these tendencies, air, earth, fire, water, will oppose the godly soul. The godly soul cares. He just wants to fix the world, make the world a better place. If you're a woman, you want to have a child, and you want to make that child into a good person, a moral person, a person that will be a light unto the world. And so these two souls in us are battling, and it's a tremendous battle. And every single religious, philosophical, psychological, kind of philosophy understands that we have this battle. So personal growth is a little bit like Freud speaks about maturity. And Freud says it in a very good way. Not that everything Freud said is correct, but some of the things that he said is quite clever. And he describes it like this. He says, what is maturity? He says there are 2 types of brains in us, which is very, again, you could mess it in different ways, but it's basically the same concept. You have what he calls, if I'm not mistaken, the pleasure principle or the fantasy principle. This is like a child. This is, you're living in imagination. This is what I want. And children can get very upset if you don't give them what they want. Why? Because they're living in fantasy. I deserve it, or I should have it. And sad to say, a lot of people in Western democracies are actually children. They haven't grown up. You take people, I'm very impressed with immigrants that say they come from Mexico. Sometimes maybe they escaped the border. And irrespective, the bottom line is, they work hard. Nobody's, they remind me of the Jews that came, even my grandfather, he came basically as a survivor. They didn't ask anyone for anything. They worked their way up the ladder, and they work hard. They provide for their families. Why? Because they come from situations they know no one's going to be giving them a handout. You look at Israelis, also tough. They can go anywhere in the world. They don't come from environments which are oh, we just love you, we're going to give you money for college, and worst case scenario, we'll give you an apartment, we'll give you food stamps. I'm not saying that it's good to help people out, but the point of the matter is they're coming from environments which are tough. And when you come from a tough environment, as the Rambam says, you develop courage. It's a big issue that they say with a lot of the youngsters in America. They don't have resilience. But be that as it may, the main point that I'm bringing out is that in the end of the day, people that are not used to that kind of toughness, they call them snowflakes. In other words, you touch them the wrong way, they fall apart. You can't blame them because nobody's born with resilience. No one's born tough. You're born very vulnerable. You develop resilience. Sometimes you can become too resilient. Sometimes you can be too insensitive. So it's always a balance. It's not a simple thing. But the point is that maturity, what Freud calls maturity, is what he calls reality thinking. You're out of fantasy and pleasure thinking, you're into reality thinking. Reality thinking is, look, it's like King Solomon, who was, so to say, the wisest of all men. He certainly was absolutely brilliant if you read his writings, Proverbs, etc. So King Solomon says, lazy person, look at the ant. The ant is always working. You're lazy. So when you're following one of your instincts, whether it's earth, air, fire, water, you're actually being an idiot, because in the end of the day, these things will get you nowhere. Okay, let's say you are lazy. Where is it going to get you? Nowhere. Sadness. Where is it going to get you? Nowhere. Pleasure. Where is it going to get you? Nowhere. Supremacy. Where is it going to get you? Nowhere, except for losing your friends. And fun. Where is that going to get you? It's going to get you nowhere. You're not going to feel accomplished. You're not going to feel good. So a big part of reality is you have to accept 3 facts. And if you accept these 3 facts, you have the mindset of personal growth. The first fact is I met this young lady. Unfortunately, she went through a lot of maybe sexual abuse and things like that, but she really got her act together. She was learning to become a doctor, and she was very spiritual. And she said to me a very simple line, but a very profound line. She said, remember, you are a creation. Think about that for a second. Do you see yourself as a creation? You don't think that you're a creation. You think, I exist. But do you exist? I'm 45 years old. 46 years ago, there was no shred of this human being that is right here in this universe. It didn't exist. Maybe on a soul level it existed, but certainly not on a body level. In other words, every single cell that is in me was a creation of God. Just like right now, there are billions of little creatures being created. There are children that are being conceived. In the future, there will be zillions and millions of different bodies of whatever plant life, animal life, human life. And they're all coming out of nothing. So a male and a female, egg and sperm get together, and boom, creation. I don't know if you know this, but when a male and a female egg get together, what happens is there's a flash of light. Flash of light. We're created. Once you understand that, you have a mission. See, if you just think, and part of the reason that there was, so say, the Enlightenment that had the kind of scientific revolution was people were trying to get away from religion and responsibility. They just wanted to have that's why you find that people that are quote-unquote scientific, they're very into their libido. It's all about perversion. Why? Because that's what it was really all about in the first place. They're trying to excuse their libido to do whatever it wanted. But when you actually look at the fact, no, you're not just a random blob. You're a miracle. There's nobody that comes out of I have 3 children, thank God. You don't come out of that waiting room and you don't say, this is a miracle. The doctor says it's a miracle. It's a miracle. How does this child, a human being, form in 9 months? It's unbelievable. It's a miracle. We're all miracles. Every living thing that exists is a miracle. Just look at the DNA code. If you had to stack DNA, if you had to write it down in pieces of paper, it would reach to the moon. Can you imagine? That's how much is in each cell. We have billions and trillions of cells. So the point of the matter is we are here for a reason. And that's the first step to personal growth. Because why should I grow if it's all about me? But once you understand it's not about me, I'm here as part of a bigger picture, then growth is what it's all about. The next step to personal growth is humility. A person who thinks that they're God can never grow. In fact, our sages teach us an amazing statement. God can be with an idol worshiper who's humble. He says this idol is a God. God is with that man if he's humble. Then you can have a Torah scholar, a rabbi, a guy who knows everything. but he's arrogant. He thinks he's God. God says, he doesn't have place for me in my heart. There's no place for me. Because when we're arrogant, we think we're always right. There's no place for growth in arrogance. Now, ironically, arrogance comes from three places. It can come, and forgive me if you're a German, but the Germans, which is obvious, they have, I'm not going to go into all the mysticism behind it, an innate arrogance. I mean, which idiot would think that they're a super race? The next thing is arrogance can come, which is how it usually comes. It comes from shame. And this is the famous psychologist who created narcissism. He also created what's called narcissistic wounding. In other words, when I am shamed, and many of us have this, we then have to bypass the shame. We bypass the shame by pretending this is to ourselves that we're something that we are not. We're so great. We're so wonderful. On the flip side, it's important to have ego. It's important to have pride in yourself. So it's always a balance between too little ego is not good, too much ego is not good. You can't just say, oh, I should have no ego. And the third thing is sometimes we're very talented. A person may be praised. I remember seeing about a rock star. I don't want to shame him, so I don't want to go into the details, but he had some very tumultuous. He became abusive to his wife. It was quite famous. And it was interesting because he went through therapy and he was talking on the TV and he was saying how he was going on. Suddenly the guy's got private jets and this, that. And he was saying that it developed his ego. He became egotistical. So there's other ways that people can develop their ego. They think they're better than other people. Bottom line is, in order to have growth, you have to have humility. So again, it does help when you realize you're a creation, you're here for a purpose, and you know better than anyone else. They say Moses was the most humble person that ever existed. How could he be the most humble person? He was one of the greatest people that ever existed. The Bible itself says he was the greatest prophet that ever existed. The answer is he never thought that he was better than you. He thought maybe God gave him a greater gift than you. So let's say I'm a great singer. I actually enjoy singing. Not that I have a great voice, but let's say I'm a great singer. Now, if I think I'm greater than you, that means it develops arrogance. But if I think, listen, God gave me a talent. Some great singers, I know people that are like this, say, I have to use this talent. This talent is part of my mission. It's not something that I can disregard. Each one of us, it's like a flower bed. Each one of us is a unique flower. We have to shine our light. In fact, it's very important to know what your talents are, to use your talents, and whenever you think you've done enough, that's the time to keep on doing more, because until we see the Messiah with our own eyes, until there are no more suffering in this world, we have more work to do. So, the bottom line is, you have to see yourself as you're on a mission, and the talents you have to know your talents, but you have to see it that my mission has to be to fix up the world. I'm going to put a link to my book, because on the bottom of my book, in the appendix of my book, I discover the meaning of your life, and there are 5 steps on how to do this. But we all definitely have a mission. And finally, most importantly, the thing about infinite growth is this: the Holy Baal Shem Tov, who I mentioned, one of the greatest masters, said like this, and he really revealed a tremendous concept. Infinite growth is built into the universe itself. There's a great writer, if you want to check out his works. His name is Tzvi Freeman. He's an editor on Chabad.org. So he has a great line. He says, this world is God's classroom without walls. Everything we go through in life is obviously an experience. All experiences are basically very deep lessons. If you want to know how to live, the Baal Shem Tov says, everything you see, everything you hear is a lesson in life. I remember when I came across this teaching, I spent 2 weeks. I was a little bit obsessed about it, to be honest, and I was busy looking at everything. This teaches me this, and this teaches me that. But eventually, after 2 weeks, what happened is it became like everything in your brain. You learn a habit. So now, in the back of my head, whenever I see something, I'm always thinking about a lesson. It's such a beautiful way to live. There was a chassid, a very great man. In fact, I had the privilege of meeting him. His name was Mendel Futerfas. He was sent to Siberia for 20 years hard labor for helping Jews in Russia. He was such a great man. The day he got out, he continued to helping Jews. He was an amazing individual. This individual, while he's in the prison labor camp, we have so many stories of things that he learned from. For example, there was one of the days, maybe one of the prisoners was freed, and he asked the guards if he could make. He was a trapeze artist and a tightrope walker. So he did a tightrope, and he was very friendly with Mendel Futerfas, and he said to Mendel Futerfas, what's the hardest part of the tightrope? So he said, I don't remember exactly the story, but something to this extent. Mendel said, I think the hardest part is when you turn. He says, absolutely. He says, why is the hardest part when you turn? Because in order to do it right, you have to always be focused on a goal. So Mendel Futterfass said, that's the key in life. Always focus on a goal. Don't worry about what's under you. Worry about what's ahead of you. That way you'll be focused. So here's a guy in a prison labor camp. You can imagine most people would be moaning their fate. Here's a guy. He actually could have gotten out of Russia, but he stayed. His mother told him to stay as long as he could help another Jew. And the bottom line is that he was able to be higher than his reality because he was learning a lesson. Now, I want you to really understand what I'm telling you, because this is fundamental. It's changed my life, and it's the most, I believe it's the truest reality. It's a subconscious reality. I don't know if it's subconscious. It's subterranean, meaning it's like Einstein said, there are only two ways to live life. One is though everything is a miracle, the other is though nothing is. And you could reap or paraphrase that and say there are only two ways to live life. One, as though I'm okay. The other is as though I'm always going to be growing from the experiences God gives me. So, to sum it up, everything you hear, everything you see, and even sometimes thoughts that God will put into your head is a personal, divine directive, a lesson that you can take out for your personal growth.